and Rick baking bread again. Thanks for joining us last time. I gathered from people, they found it very, very amusing to see me mess my way through cooking and baking. And today is no exception because this is our second take at this. We have the product of our first take, and then I realized the camera was none. So I'm gonna stay out of the kitchen and make sure that everything's working. So Nick, what are we doing today?
We are making my grandmother Spano's Easter bread.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is it bread?
Well, it's a bread product. So it actually uses a cookie dough that goes around the eggs opposed to a bread dough. So there's no yeast involved, and we're using all-purpose flour opposed to bread flour.
So this is your grandmother's?
It is.
Tell us about your grandmother.
Okay, well, she was a short little Italian lady, about 5'3". This is her right here. So if any of my family is watching, actually Rick, you can hold this. Famous family portrait here of my grandparents, probably taken in the mid-'80s, around the time of their 50th wedding anniversary. These are my grandmother's parents, Grandma and Grandpa Emilio, and my grandfather's parents, Grandma and Grandpa Spano. So this is what they brought when they came with them from Italy. The recipe, not the board and the pictures.
Ciao Nick. Ciao. Ci vediamo.
Ciao. We'll see you later. So we are going to start with 3/4 of a cup of vegetable oil in
Hold on. I gotta
the
get
mixer.
You can't see.
Okay. Now we're using a KitchenAid stand mixer. My grandmother did not have one of those, but go ahead and use it because it makes it a lot easier. And we're using vegetable oil opposed to olive oil because olive oil has too strong of a flavor for what we're doing. So if you use any sort of olive oil, it's going to taste funny.
How about light olive oil?
Nope, still tastes like olives, and it's going to taste like sweet olives.
So
and
you don't
it's
want
going to be
that.
weird.
Okay.
To that, we are going to add 1 cup of milk. Whatever type of milk you like. If you use whole milk, it's going to be a little richer than if you use skim.
Which is water that's lying about being milk.
So go with what you got. All right, and to that, we're going to add 3 extra large eggs. If you don't like extra large eggs, you can use whatever you have. Just realize that the amount of egg white in the egg is going to change the moisture content of the dough, and you may have to use more flour or less flour depending on how big the eggs are. Turn that on. And to that I'm going to add 2 tablespoons and a little bit extra of almond extract.
Is it the same as almond?
Well, it's made from almonds, but it is an extract in an alcohol base opposed to an oil base.
Oh.
Oil is much stronger than extract, so if you do use oil, you probably need less, but you still need 2 tablespoons of liquid to make the dough work. So we're using 2 tablespoons, and like a little bit more, because alcohol-based extracts sometimes bake off in the oven, and they don't taste as strong in the end. So we're just adding a little bit extra. If you don't like almond, or someone's allergic to it, you can use lemon, you can use orange, you can use anise, whatever flavoring you like.
How about lavender?
You can use lavender, but you have to use an oil. There is no lavender extract that I know of. Now, there could be if you look on Amazon, I don't know. But you have to cut it with a little bit of lemon, because if you use straight lavender, it's going to taste like a bar of soap.
Ooh.
We had that happen once.
And Nick,
Short
just for those of us who are into that stuff, is like an extract. Is that like the stuff you get in the pharmacy? That it's like rubbing oils, or are there specific food oils?
You have to get food grade essential oils.
Okay.
And they will say that. If you go to Whole Foods or if you go someplace, it'll say either food safe or do not consume, not for consumption. And there is a difference, just on how they're processed.
Okay.
Okay, to that, we're going to add 1 pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Okay, which I measure out to be 1/4 of a teaspoon.
Or about little fingertip.
Or 1/4 of a teaspoon.
Okay.
All right. To that, we're going to add 1 cup of white granulated sugar.
Granulated sugar means what? Just regular sugar?
Regular table sugar.
Okay.
You can't use brown sugar because that has molasses. You can use a sugar substitute like Splenda. It doesn't really change anything too much.
Except might kill you, but it's okay.
Well, it may kill you and it doesn't taste quite as good, but you know, it's okay if you want to do that. But it's Easter, so why would you skimp on that? Okay, to this we're gonna add 8 teaspoons.
Oh, we have a guest.
Oh my God, Jeremiah's here.
Hey, what's going on?
Come on over, Jeremiah.
How you guys doing?
We're making a cooking class.
We're good. So this is Jeremiah, the campus minister from
SU.
Syracuse University.
How you doing?
You weren't
Nobody's
Lemoyne.
wearing
I know, I
Lemoyne
went to
t-shirt.
Lemoyne, yeah, I'm repping some Lemoyne today. I'm at SU.
Wow.
And you were with Father Jerry at SU Campus Ministry.
Yep.
So we're making bread and we're posting it on our parish YouTube.
Oh, that's awesome. Great.
So, what are you doing here? Why are you in the priory? Are you joining?
Yeah, that's right. I'm getting some stuff for Father Jerry's in
Not too
Florida
close.
right now.
Not
Yeah,
too
not too close. Getting some stuff for Father Jerry.
6 feet.
Yeah, 6 feet.
6 feet, social
Yeah.
distancing.
Mel, he's out in Boynton Beach, so getting some stuff that he needs.
It's Jerry, if you're watching, we feel bad for you that you're out by the beach. It's awful. How about your brother's in seminary, right? Or is he going to seminary?
Yeah, he just got accepted. Yep, he'll start in the fall.
Cornelius?
Yep.
What were your parents thinking?
It was actually my dad. He gave us both our names, so.
Jeremiah and Cornelius.
Yeah, that's right. My mom liked him after a while. She got used to it. Now she really loves him.
So what's his? He loves him. She didn't love him before.
No, it took her a little bit to get used to the names, but she loves our names now and wouldn't want anything differently.
So what do you call him, Corny?
He really likes his full name, so I normally call him Cornelius. Some high school friends have given him that nickname, but
How about Neil?
no one's ever called him Neil. I don't know if he'd like that.
Neil, it's a new name. Anyways, nice seeing you.
Nice to see you guys. All right, stay safe as well. Great to see everybody at Assumption. Enjoy the video. All right, see you guys later.
Bye, Jeremiah.
It's kind of like a Mr. Rogers when like the mailman would show up, Mr. McFeely. Which is a generational reference that probably most of our parishioners aren't going to get, but that's okay. So we're going to add the 8 teaspoons of baking powder because we want this to be big and fluffy.
Just like you.
Thanks, Rick. Okay. That didn't quite totally mix in, which is fine. Don't panic. We're gonna start adding in the flour, and the recipe calls for 6 cups of flour. It's an approximation, okay? So some people want to add all 6 cups at once. Don't do that because it totally depends, one, on the size of the eggs, like I said, how much more than 2 tablespoons of extract you put in for flavoring, and also the humidity of where you're working is gonna end up dictating how much flour it actually needs. So I would start with like 5.5 cups, give or take, and
Okay.
we'll see what happens, okay?
Didn't you just say don't put all the cups in there?
I didn't. There's still about 1/2 cup in there. Now, be careful when you turn on the mixer so the flour doesn't go everywhere. Most KitchenAids have a stir feature where they'll start off slow and then pick up speed.
That's cool. Meanwhile, while we're doing this, I hope everybody's feeling well and staying healthy. Sorry about that lack of 6 feet from Jeremiah. You see people, you get excited, you forget about that. So,
We're gonna put the rest of it in.
okay. Can I get rid of this?
You can, thank you. Okay, now you don't want to overmix it because this is not regular bread.
Yeah.
And if you overmix it, you're going to make too much gluten in the dough and it's going to be tough and chewy and not pillowy soft. So, sorry, I just got to get a spatula.
Pillowy soft, like people said my hands looked. Pillowy
Yeah.
soft.
No calluses, ladies and gentlemen. Not
There's one callus right here.
Doubt it. Okay. So,
Ooh, what are we doing?
we're going to turn it out on a floured surface. down so that it doesn't stick to the countertop
Okay.
or the board or whatever you're working on.
Oh! Camera went flying. Sorry.
It got awful quiet all of a sudden.
I know, I love it. I noticed you got the ovens on.
Oh, yeah. Preheating the ovens to 350 degrees.
There you go.
So that when this is done, we can pop them right in. Okay. So here's the dough. It's a little sticky, but not too sticky, because you need just a little bit of stick, or else it won't roll out for what we need it to do. Okay? So, there's that. Okay, so the other thing I've done ahead of time was I hard-boiled and dyed a bunch of eggs. Like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, a dozen. 1 dozen eggs.
Usually it's what it is, yeah.
Yeah. So, does everybody know how to hard-boil an egg?
No?
No? Oh my God, so easy. So you put the eggs in cold water, put the pan on the stove, bring it up to a boil, turn the burner off, put a lid on it for 12 minutes.
So the eggs are in the water beforehand?
Yep,
In the cold water?
in the cold water.
And then you bring
If
it
you
up
don't
to
start them in cold water, they might crack, which isn't a problem if you're making egg salad, but this, we don't want them to crack or break in the cooking process. So I drained
put
out
them
the,
in cold water, bring it to a boil, and then
turn it off,
turn it off and wait,
put a lid on it,
and wait 12 minutes.
and wait 12 minutes, okay? And then, because I was making them all the same color, when I drained out the hot water, I just put the egg dye in the pan and let them sit there kind of in one big little jacuzzi.
Okay.
Now my grandmother used to make them in multicolors, so she'd have like blue ones, yellow ones, pink ones, green ones, and it was adorable. And it is adorable. But for the sake of time, we did them all pink. Sometimes I use red eggs, a little bit more of a Greek Orthodox number to have red eggs for Easter,
Why?
which goes back to Mary Magdalene and her famed dinner with the Emperor Theodosius. And she was explaining to Theodosius why she converted to Christianity. And he said that he picked up an egg off the table and said that there was more likelihood that this white egg would turn red than a man would rise from the dead. And miraculously, the egg turned red. So if you see iconography of Mary Magdalene, she's always holding a red egg. I'm not sure what that beeping means. I believe the refrigerator was just attesting to the fact of the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Beautiful.
So, this is what we're going to do. We're going to roll these out. And I've also taken the liberty of preparing pans with parchment paper ahead of time so that the cookies will pop off the pans a little bit easier. If you don't have parchment paper, you don't need it. You can do this on an ungreased cookie sheet. Just realize they may get a little browner a little faster. Okay.
I'm gonna pan to the table now. They won't see your face so much.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're gonna get nauseous going back and forth.
All right. So we're gonna start making the little Easter baskets.
The what?
Little Easter baskets. Okay. So we take one piece of dough.
How big is that little square? It's hard to tell from the one under your right hand.
This.
Yeah. How big would you say that is?
Yeah, a couple inches.
Okay.
And we want to roll it out starting in the middle, working to the edges, so that it makes a little rope like that. Okay? And we're going to cut it in half. We're going to take 2 little eggs. And the first, we're just going to put the dough across like that.
Okay.
Okay? Got that? Pretty simple. Just lay it right across like that.
Yeah.
That's going to be the handle.
Okay.
Now we're going to take another piece of dough, a little bit bigger,
It's a lot bigger.
a lot bigger, and we're not going to roll it out as thin but we're gonna roll it out the same way. So you need just a little bit of flour to roll it. You start in the middle and work out to the edges to make another piece of rope, snake, whatever. All right, it looks like that. Now we're gonna cut it in half,
How thick would you say that is?
maybe 3/4 of an inch.
Okay.
Remember, it's got a lot of baking powder, so it is going to rise up significantly.
All right. Oh, I see. Make a little basket.
So you make a little basket, just like that.
If you guys are hearing this noise, it's a refrigerator. Something to consider before you renovate your house and put in a commercial fridge. They are very noisy, but it works for us in this. With 8 men, it's what you need.
So if the dough is super dry,
Yeah.
you can use a little bit of egg wash,
Make it
which
stick.
is just, yeah. But
What's egg wash?
egg wash is a combination of 1 egg and a few tablespoons of water, just beaten together. Okay? So you've got those, and those are good for individual people.
Individual.
1 per person, maybe?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, they're individual little things.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
And this is where you're only limited by your creativity, okay? So we're gonna make a bigger one. One important thing to keep in mind is you have to hard-boil the eggs before you try to do this. If you don't, the eggs won't cook because they're insulated by the dough, and
Oh, so don't put raw eggs
you
in.
cannot put raw eggs in.
And should they be cool? Should they have
Cool and dry.
cool and dry? Okay.
If they're too wet,
Okay. So slow down because I was panning your face while you were doing that.
okay.
Oh, like a braid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, good luck getting it off the table.
Well, we'll do the best we can with what we got. Now, I like to have all the braids going the same way, so it
Mhm.
looks consistent, but you do you. The other thing you can do, which I probably should have done, is made it on the paper. It would probably be a little bit easier.
Yes, I'm dying to watch this.
Well, let's see what happens. Let's see if we can do it. Okay. So it didn't quite make it, but it didn't quite fall apart either.
No, it looks nice.
So-
Actually, it looks like a rabbit from here.
So what we'll do is we'll move this one over here.
It looks cute. Oh, you ruined it.
I did. I did.
You don't like the little tips? I did not. Sometimes they burn, they get overcooked, and they don't look right.
Now this one's gonna be a little bit funky. Let's be honest with ourselves. This part's gonna cook a lot faster probably than this part. So this is gonna be a little bit browner and a
They
little
can't
bit
see
drier.
that. I'm looking at your face. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
So the thinner parts are gonna cook faster than the other ones. But we're gonna do the best we can. And as Julia Child once said,
Not going to be ready to fail. You're not going to learn how to cook. That's what that little lecture is all about.
so we're gonna put those in. I hope that shut. Yeah, give or take. And we are gonna bake those for just about 15 minutes.
Oh, wow, fast.
Okay, doesn't take that long. So by the time I get the next ones done, we'll see those come out of the oven. And this is only if you want to get super fancy, or as I would say, all first world. Take an egg white.
Did you just throw that egg out?
Just the yolk.
Ugh. Nicholas,
What?
you do something with it.
Like what? What are you gonna do with one egg yolk?
I don't know.
Really? Come on. You're not gonna do anything with one egg yolk. So you can beat up one egg yolk, or one egg white, I'm sorry, just to kind of break it up a little bit. Rick is finding me the basting brush. Okay, give me 1 second.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Okay, stop that. Okay, so if you want to get fancy, you can take a little bit of beaten egg white and carefully brush it on the dough. Try not to get it on the egg because it might get a little discolored.
Okay.
Okay, so just gonna put a little egg white here, there, and everywhere. And then take sanding sugar.
So what?
Sanding sugar.
Sanding?
Mm-hmm. Or pearlized sugar. This, I believe, is referred to, this one is diamond sugar. And just sprinkle it over the top.
Can you give me some in my hand?
Sure. So it's kind of large grain. It's not granulated sugar. It's a little bit bigger.
Tastes good.
Okay.
Well, I guess I just broke my fast, huh?
Okay.
Yay, I can eat lunch.
Yay! We love pure sugar. Gift from the gods. Now this won't turn the dough super brown because it's egg white opposed to egg yolk. But when it comes out, it'll just be kind of
Glistening?
shiny and glistening, and you'll see the sugar crystals on top, and it's gonna look amazing. My grandmother never did this. A little adaptation to make it more festive.
Okay.
Okay, so that's about all of that.
All right.
Check these. Oh, they look beautiful. Okay, so let's put these in the oven.
And you can put it in the same oven?
You can.
Yeah, doesn't it change the heat or this or that or? No.
Probably. But it's kind of a forgiving recipe. It's not like a souffle or the bread that you made that was so very intricately put together and executed.
You're gonna have to stretch that
A little bit. She's gonna make though.
You're gonna make.
She gonna make. Shout out to the late Sister Mary from Granby, who coined the ever amazing phrase, she no gonna make. But in this case, she gonna make. Now,
That's the Sister Mary of the Missionary Sisters of Assisi. So Sister Mary was one of our cooks at our seminary, and one of the older sisters, Sister Noemi, was being taken to the hospital because she was very ill. And as the ambulance took her away, Sister Mary very glibly said, "She's not gonna make."
okay.
Good news is she did make.
So, because it was kind of a little thin at the end and wasn't terribly pliable, I took a little bit of the egg white on the end and stuck it
To make
together.
it stick? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
It'll be fine. Okay?
That's good.
There it is. It's our finished little doodad. Now, if you want to get really fancy pants and you had more dough and more colored eggs, you could do a big circular one, like as a centerpiece for the table.
Ooh.
Okay? It's all up to you. Power is in your hands. So we're gonna throw this in the oven.
Is this the middle rack or the lower rack or?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't think it really matters so much. Like I said, it's a pretty forgiving dough. It doesn't, it's not terribly high maintenance.
Okay.
All right.
So we need some more time?
We do, we need more time.
Okay, so we're going to take a little break and see you shortly.
We'll be back. So, as you heard in our earlier video, there was a technological error and we ended up with a second batch of dough because the camera wasn't on. But now we're out of eggs because they're all already baked. So what do? Well, like I said, you can use this dough to make different shapes and it comes out just fine. So we took 2 pieces and braided them together and dusted them with the sanding sugar to make one large cookie. We also made a bunch of little S's to go with them. And it's simple. You just roll out the dough like that. You take a piece and you make it into the letter S for Spano. Okay? Yeah. So, funny story, when I was a kid, my grandmother wasn't baking perhaps as much as she used to, so there were an awful lot of Stella D'oro cookies around her house and over at my Aunt Rose's. And they usually had the S-shaped Stella D'oro cookies, which until I was about 25, I believed stood for Spano. I never really put it together that the S was for Stella and Stella D'oro. So it's kind of like our own version of that. All right, so we're gonna we've taken a couple things out of the oven, and we're gonna take our last ones out that are still in there. And this is the big one that had 3 eggs that we made. And when you touch it, the dough is still a little bit soft. The dough doesn't get terribly brown on top, but you can see it gets brown on the bottom. You don't want it much browner than that because they keep cooking once you take them out of the oven. And if you let them sit there too long in the oven, they'll get too hard and they won't be too terribly yummy. So these are the ones we made that have the sanding sugar on top, and these are the ones that are just plain. And we'll frost those a little bit later. Okay, so we're gonna pop these in the oven. And we'll make the rest of these.
Oh, Nikki, you do such a good job. We're so proud of our grandson.
Yeah, we do a
Good
nice
job.
job.
Good job, Nikki. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hello, everyone. We taught him everything he knows. Some.
So, got the last ones of those finished. And we'll put those in. All right, we'll be back in a little bit. So, we're going to make the frosting for these, and it's kind of like fundamental never fail frosting that goes on top of everything and every cookie, I think, in the Italian kitchen. So we start with some confectioner sugar.
Some?
Some.
What's some mean?
Some means about that much.
Well,
If you have more cookies, you put in some more. If you have less cookies, you put in some less.
Okay, so if you had to guess, that's a cup?
Yeah. I'm not really sure. I gotta get
Where we
some
going?
water. I forgot about that. So you got about that much. And to that, we're gonna add about
Some.
that much.
Is that a tablespoon?
Sure. And maybe about that much cold water.
That's not really helpful, Nick, for those of us who are afraid of baking.
Don't be afraid, because if it's too liquidy, you can always add more confectioner sugar. If it's too pasty, you can always add more water or extract. But don't be afraid, okay? Don't live in fear.
Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come follow
Bake with
me,
me.
bake with me, and I will raise your cookies.
Yeah, okay. So we tried. Okay, so it's like a little too thick for what we wanted to
Thick?
do.
That's thick?
That's a little too thick.
I thought it
You'll
was-
see. So
okay.
we're gonna add just a little bit more water.
Oh, sorry, folks.
Hope nobody got whiplash. Oh, okay, see how that is? That's what we want.
Do it again.
Okay, so the other thing you absolutely have to have, or it does not work at all, are these little sprinkles. Nothing says party like rainbow sprinkles. But they're not regular sprinkles like you put on ice cream.
Oh, really?
These are festive fixings, non-peril decors. Now,
No.
for the last 39 years, I have always heard them referred to is nonpareils or nonpareils. I was just corrected, as I so frequently am. It is not nonpareil. It is
Non pareil.
nonpareil. Evidently, it's French. So you can take a look there.
Oops. There you go. So for those of us from Quebec, it's non pareil décor, made in Florida.
Or perhaps you're from French New Guinea, or any of the other French colonies.
Franco-Ontarians or Acadians or
A lot of people speak French other than the Quebecois.
French Manitobans, French Canadians, and also French Americans.
And I've also kind of heard that most French-speaking people despise the Quebecois accent. Can you speak to that?
Well, you know, it's
Let's just suffice it to say is yes, the entire French world detests the Quebecois accent. So let's move back
well,
to the
I
cookies.
hate it as much as I hate the
You're not-
French from France, because that's not really nice
Ooh,
either.
It's getting ugly in here.
But good
folks.
for, you know.
So
good,
we're gonna
good,
go back to the cookies now.
Good
Focus.
Quebecois French is nice.
Focus. I need you to get the ADD under control.
Hey.
So here we are. Nothing wrong with that. We've got the little cookies here, and we've got our icing. So we're just gonna kind of like, you know, give it a little bit,
Oh no,
a
that
little
looks
bit of
terrible.
love. It's all gonna pool together, but you don't want to hide the egg too much. But you want to get the icing on a good amount of the cookie.
Oh, you're not just doing like a sprinkle.
No, so it's gonna pool together, and then we take the nonpareil, and we put the nonpareil on the top of the cookie. Just like that. And they kind of run all down the sides.
Oh, so it does pool.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna pool together. And in probably about,
Still looks a little messy, Nick.
well, you know, they're homemade, and that's the way my grandmother did it, so be quiet.
Okay.
Okay?
Nona's always right.
Well, you know, now there's a funny thing though. She was never Nona, she was always Grandma. Because Nona was her mother.
Not Nona or Nonna?
Well, you know,
In central New York, it's Nona, I
well,
found.
we never learned to speak Italian, so you gotta just run with it.
Nona. I've never heard so many people say Nona as I've heard here in New York, in Syracuse.
Is it possible for you to offend any more people during the taping of this cooking
I'm just
segment?
saying, it's not Nona.
I'm just saying.
Nonna.
Okay, so we got some,
Bis nonna.
got a few extra sprinkles on that one.
Ma siete tutti disgraziati. That really, really smells good though.
Now, I'm sure people who are watching could do a better frosting job. You know who's awesome at frosting?
Oh.
Yolande.
Oh yes, my sister Yolande.
Yolande is amazing at frosting cookies, mittens, scarves at Christmas. They're beautiful.
Cakes.
Shout out to Yolande Sampson,
Yolande is
Brossard, Quebec.
my sister, Yolande Riccioli.
She could probably do amazing things with these, as far as little baskets, little designs.
You know who's also very good at baking is your Aunt Flo.
My Aunt Flo is very good at baking. She
You know,
is.
she's up in Watertown in quarantine, eh?
She is. She's 67 miles from here in Syracuse, up in Watertown. And she just texted me a little while ago.
Oh, we should call her.
Should we call her? Oh my God, let's call Aunt Flo. Because you never know what Aunt Flo is going to be doing. Let's see here.
Can you put her on speaker?
She's on the speaker.
Tricky.
Mm-hmm. She might not be home. She might be baking Easter cookies.
And she's texting you.
Well, you know, not unlike so many other people. She texts and then you text her back and she doesn't answer.
I always text you back.
No, you know. Anywho.
This is Florence. Please leave a message. And
That's it?
at the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hey Aunt Flo, it's Nick. We just wanted to call you. Rick and I are making Easter cookies and we were gonna put you in the video, but you're probably making Easter cookies yourself right now, so you can't answer the phone. So give me a call when you get this. Love you. Bye. Unfortunately, we couldn't get in touch with Aunt Flo. She might be working on the Mount Carmel Festival, the Bravo Festival. She's exceptionally busy.
We have another guest.
So we have another guest.
Friar Ed. Hi, Ed. Say hello.
Hi, how are ya?
We're making cookies.
Looks nice, yeah.
Ed likes things made out of chocolate more than almonds.
It's alright.
Little
They have
bit.
sugar in them, I'm good.
You and Nevin. Well, all of us.
All of us, let's be honest. Well, these should be dry in probably about 45 minutes to an hour.
45 minutes.
Yeah, just to let them get dry. And then you can store them in a cookie jar under a cake dome. And they mail exceptionally well.
Really?
Yes, we can mail them all the way to Florida.
Okay.
Okay.
So Big Liz should be getting a delivery maybe.
Big Liz should be getting some Easter cookies in the next few days, depending when UPS can get them there.
So if those of you who don't know, Big Liz is?
Big Liz is my mom. How do you not know Big Liz? I think everybody knows Big Liz.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just pan out to the
Okay.
cookies again. There you go, the finished product as Nick continues. Say goodbye, Nick.
Buona Pasqua.
Ciao. Happy Easter, everyone.